Let's talk about Neom. This is Saudi Arabia's plan to build a new city. It's gotten a ton of coverage over the years, ton of hype, ton of interest. Just for those that don't know, the plan is to build a 105-mile-long glass-domed megacity in the desert of Saudi Arabia. It's supposed to house 9 million people with no cars, fully staffed by robots, fully powered by wind and solar. It's supposed to have its own ski resort, and my personal favorite stat, it's supposed to have its own artificial moon. I've thought this is ridiculous for a long time because it's just unrealistic. And now we're learning they're 55 years away from completion. The projected cost is $9 trillion now. And I just want to emphasize the original budget for this city was $500 billion. So they are over budget by 1,700%, or in dollar terms, $8.5 trillion. And I think this highlights a problem that I've flagged before about Saudi Arabia and their investment decisions. Quite simply, I think they're childish. I just don't think these are very serious investors. The combination of the ski resort and the moon, the obsession with the Premier League, with the World Cup, with golf, with giant AI chips, that company Cerebras, the obsession with esports and gaming. Just last week, they bought Pokemon Go for $3.5 billion. And I look at what's happening in Saudi Arabia and what they're investing in. The whole thing to me is reminiscent of a rich kid with a billionaire dad who just gave him the keys to the family trust. And by the way, that's pretty much what that country is. Like, the only difference is that it's not a trust fund, it's an oil reserve. So I think these are unserious, frankly, stupid investments. But I'm going to brace myself for when you call me racist in the next 2 minutes.
You're accurate. It is a rich kid. My interaction with the kingdom has mostly been around involvement with hedge funds raising money and some of the investments they make. And I find that they're actually incredibly disciplined and very smart, and that they hire the best and brightest from the alternative investments world to try and allocate their capital efficiently. In this instance, that maybe their eyes are bigger than their stomach. Maybe it'll be scaled back. But I'd like to see more big, outrageous ideas proposed. I would like to see in the U.S. them say, we're going to spend several $1 trillion to build a national high-speed rail, at least up and down the Eastern Seaboard. I'd like to see some big, bold infrastructure announcements in the U.S. We did one. Our Infrastructure Act was $700 billion, I think. They have 7 projects of over $1 trillion. It looks as if this one is probably unrealistic, but I think that a place like the kingdom has the money and the mandate to, quite frankly, be out over their skis a little bit.
I do think there's a difference between a high-speed rail and an artificial moon. And there's somewhere in that difference is where we draw the line. To your point, though, they are attracting a ton of investment. They're attracting especially a lot of consulting businesses and advisory businesses. The advisory business has grown 13% in the Gulf states in the past year. Deloitte has 9 offices in the UAE alone. And there's this stat that I love, which is that McKinsey, which is consulting on this Neom project, McKinsey is reportedly earning more than $130 million per year to consult on Neom. And my reaction to that is, you got to hand it to McKinsey. I mean, they are just exceptional at finding rich people, building them PowerPoint presentations, and then charging them crazy fees. All I can think is just what a great business consulting is. These huge margins, very little overhead. You were a consultant for many years. Do you have any thoughts on just how the consulting business works?
Let me give you the pluses and the minuses of consulting. It's a great company to start because it requires little CapEx. Your expenses and your assets go home in the elevator every night. And if you don't have business, you can lay off people. If you do have business, you can ramp up. So in this sense, it services companies are good businesses to start because they don't require a lot of IP or dramatic CapEx. You can start a consulting company, as I did, by just getting a client. I got Dryers and I got Levi Strauss & Company and Williams-Sonoma as my first clients. It's an incredible training if you want to be an athlete. You have to be a good communicator. You have to be good with analytics. You have to be good at managing relationships. You have to be able to sell. It really is training for a triathlon or a decathlon. I think it's a fantastic, if you're coming out of business school and think, I want a second MBA, but I want it in the private sector, consulting is a fantastic training. It turns you into a great athlete. You make good money. You never get really wealthy That's the downside, because the barriers of entry here, it's a multiple of EBITDA business. When I started my second consulting firm, L2, which I called Business Strategy, I turned it from intermittent consulting engagements. I used to charge Williams-Sonoma $500,000 to do their internet strategy. Instead, I said to Nike, give me $250,000 a year, and I'll meet with you every 3 months and just look at data and give you advice. It is a very taxing business. And again, see above, it's a young woman's game. It's very taxing on your health and your relationships, because when you're in the services business, you're always someone else's bitch. Actually, this happened to me 3 times. The CMO of Audi, who was my biggest client, called and said, Scott, we love you. Can you be in Ingolstadt tomorrow? And the answer was always, yeah. I'll get on a fucking plane from San Francisco, flying to Munich, be in coach, because it was my money back then, with 6 young people trying to figure out a PowerPoint presentation of what we were going to say to Audi that they hadn't heard from McKinsey, and bomb to the Kinkos when we got to Munich at 9 a.m. to print this thing out and then fly back to San Francisco the next day. It takes a real toll on your relationships and your health. It's a very taxing industry. It's also, you make a good living, but it's hard to get really wealthy in consulting because it's all current income. I found it fucking exhausting. I don't want to golf or have dinner. If you're having golf and dinner with people you don't really like, it means you're in an undifferentiated industry.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, the truly great companies don't need to socialize with their clients. And also, if you're spending a lot of time getting taken to basketball games or dinners by third-party vendors, it means you're paying too much. It means you're getting ripped off. So Vanguard's not going to take you out to lunch, but your wealth advisor from name the brokerage who takes you to a basketball game, that means she is charging you onerous fees.
That's a great point.
Anyways, the services business is we're all selling the same shit, and the way we differentiate is relationships. Anyways, that's my TED Talk on the services business.
I love it. By the way, I think if you were still doing that today, you would be printing money in the Gulf and kissing ass in Riyadh. But maybe you'll still do that anyway.